It's October 2024 and this place is selling petrol at a whisker under £1.28 per litre. And that got me thinking, in real terms, when you consider inflation and wage growth, is this the cheapest petrol has been over the last 20 years? And that's not even the cheapest I can find at the moment. Not far from here, on the side of a busy dual carriageway, is a place selling it for £1.24.9 per litre. Although I can't film outside that place because it's a busy 70-mile-an-hour road. The reason why I'm doing the last 20 years is simply because that's when I learnt to drive. I passed my driving test in November 2004, 20 years ago next month. And I remember back then petrol being 80p a litre or 79.9 pence. But during this video, I'm going to use data from the RAC, the AA and the Office for National Statistics. So in 2004, petrol was typically about 80 pence per litre, but wages have gone up since 2004. The average wage in 2004 was just over £19,000 per year, but apparently today in October 2024, the average wage is just under £36,000 per year. It's about an 85% increase. If 80 pence per litre of 2004 had followed the wage growth, it would be £1.48 today. And RPI inflation since 2004 is 110%. So if petrol had followed RPI inflation, that 80 pence per litre of 2004 would be £1.68 today. So although we're actually paying more than we were in 2004, we're not paying 80 pence per litre at the moment, we're paying around about £1.30 per litre in October 2024. In real terms, when you consider inflation and wage growth, we're actually paying less. You also need to consider that cars have got more efficient over the last 20 years as well, so you're probably using less fuel. This Mazda MX-5 will comfortably do 50 miles per gallon when I'm doing 70 miles an hour on a long cruise. Around town, it will do about 40 miles per gallon. And if I take it on a race circuit, I get somewhere between 14 and 20 miles per gallon, depending on the circuit and whether or not it's raining. That's really good for driving flat out. So not only are we actually paying less in real terms for petrol today than we were 20 years ago, we're probably using less of it as well. But is this the cheapest it's been over the last 20 years? Well, I looked at all the prices and I picked out the three lowest points. In January 2009, it was 85 pence per litre. That was a low point compared to before and after that time. In February 2016, it was £1.01 per litre, and in May 2020, we had another low point of £1.06 per litre. So, January 09, 85 pence per litre. In today's money, when you consider wage growth, that would be £1.38 per litre. And in today's money, when you consider RPI inflation, that would be £1.56 per litre. February 2016, £1.01 per litre. For wages in today's money, that's £1.43 per litre. And for RPI inflation in today's money, that's £1.52 per litre. So still, it's cheaper today. And May 2020, when it went all the way down to £1.06 per litre, this was fairly recently, it feels recently, although it was 4 years ago now, more than 4 years ago. If you consider wage growth in today's money, that's £1.37 per litre, so close, but not quite there, not quite as cheap as today. And if you consider RPI inflation, that's £1.41 per litre. I recently came across a BBC article that said petrol has fallen to its lowest price for 3 years, and they are right. If you look at the price, it is at its lowest that it's been over the last 3 years. But what they're not considering is affordability when you take into account inflation and wages. And when you take those two things into account, petrol is actually more affordable now in October 2024 than it has been for at least the last 20 years. But what if I go further back in time? The trouble with going further back in time is the data isn't as good. When I go back to 2004, I've got monthly fuel price data. But when I go much further back than that, I get yearly averages, which isn't as good because during that year, the average may be so much money, but it could have been higher at some points and lower at other points. And one of those lows could have been lower than it is now, but I just don't know. I only know the yearly averages. And I went back to 1990 and I found another low point which looked like it could be competitive with today. And that's 1992, when petrol was 46 pence per litre. But when you consider wage growth in today's money, that's equivalent to £1.38. But when you consider RPI inflation, it's equivalent to £1.30. So with wage growth, £1.38 is very close to how much we're paying today compared to what we're earning, but it's still a little bit more, close enough to be pretty much the same though. And RPI inflation actually makes it about the same. £1.30 is really what petrol prices are around here at the moment. In your area it may be slightly different, but 1992 seems to be a comparable year for affordability of petrol to today. So you could say petrol is at its lowest price point in the last 32 years when you consider RPI inflation. Just for fun, I've gone back to 1971. Why 1971? Well, it's the first year that I understand money. And what I mean by that is the first year of decimalisation, where there's 100 pence in a pound. If you go back further than that, then there's 240 pence per pound, and we have shillings, which are 12 pence, and farthings, which are a quarter of a pence, halfpenny, half a pence, threepenny bit, 3 pence, 6 pence, 6 pence. You've got florins, crowns, half crowns, probably more, I don't know, but I find it very difficult to get my head around 240 pence per pound. I was born in 1987. The easy thing was finding out the average fuel price. In 1971, it was about 7.5 pence per litre, which sounds really cheap. But the hard thing was finding out the average wage. The Office for National Statistics has it at £21 per week, which is about £1,100 a year. But back then, the difference between what males were earning and females were earning was great. Males were closer to £30 a week and females were closer to about £14 a week. They are the figures I've been able to find. Whether or not they're true or accurate, don't hold me to them, I don't know. But the trouble with that is that £21 a week now is sort of not really meaningful to anyone, because it kind of depends if you're a man or a woman as to necessarily where you're going to be. But I use that number anyway because it is in the middle, and there is a difference in wages between men and women still today, although that difference seems to be smaller, and I've used those same averages in all the other figures I've done, so it only makes sense to continue that and use that in 1971. But depending on whether you were a man or a woman in 1971, petrol was going to be more or less affordable because your wage is going to be different. So 7.5 pence per litre. If you're earning £21 a week, in today's money is the equivalent of 246 pence, so £2.46 per litre. This was before the 1973 and 1979 oil crisis. However, I did work out that if you were on £32 per week, which is the highest average I found for 1971, and that's if you're a male, and that was the most optimistic highest average wage, that would be the equivalent in today's money, that's 7.5 pence per litre, of £1.61 per litre, which is more expensive than today, but a lot closer. So it really depends on what average wage you're going by. But inflation, this one is fairly certain, although you can agree or disagree with inflation, how it's calculated. But RPI inflation, 7.5 pence per litre in 1971, when you consider RPI inflation is £1.55 per litre in today's money. So still much cheaper today, although £1.55 per litre, petrol was that expensive not that long ago. So really it's ups and downs, but it's not too different to what it was today in terms of inflation. But in terms of wages, well, that's a hard one. Depends how much people actually earned back then. Let me know in the comments if you were around in 1971 and were working. It's a long time ago. How much were you earning? Actually, you probably don't need to tell me that because it's quite rude to ask someone how much they were earning, but maybe you know the average wage. There was an oil crisis in 1973 and 1979. The one in 1973 went on for a while, and by 1975 petrol was about 16 pence per litre. In today's money, that is about £2.07, which is a lot per litre of petrol. We got close to that 3 years ago when petrol prices went up, but not quite there. I remember the most I spent was, I believe, £1.94 per litre of fuel. But then the prices came back down again and inflation caught up. But in the 1970s, the prices didn't come down. They actually continued to go up a little bit. They went down a little bit in 1978, but then in 1979, we got another oil crisis and it went flying up again. But what did happen is we had an inflation explosion in the 1970s. So the prices didn't actually need to come down because inflation caught up. About 2.5 years ago, I made a video when petrol prices were really high. And in that video, I gave my prediction as to what's going to happen. So you can watch that video if you like. I'll leave a link up there and see if my prediction is right or wrong or somewhere in between. But the good news is, at the moment, petrol prices are more affordable than they have been for a very long time. The bad news is it's probably not going to last long. Petrol prices are volatile. They go up and down. When they're down, that's great, enjoy them, but it's not going to last long probably, and they're going to go up. And when they're up, it's expensive, but the good news is they're probably going to come down soon. The reason why petrol at the moment in Great Britain is a bit cheaper, well I shouldn't say a bit cheaper, a lot cheaper than it has been for a long time, is because the price of oil is lower. However, that's not going to last long because OPEC Plus try to control the supply of oil to influence the price. And if the price of oil is lower, they're going to try and reduce supply to increase the price. Another reason why petrol prices are lower at the moment is because oil is traded in dollars, US dollars, and the pound is slightly stronger against the US dollar at the moment than it has been for some time. So we get a better exchange rate, and therefore when we're buying oil, that better exchange rate means we get more oil for our pound, and therefore prices at the pumps come down. Well, I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, then Collingwood are there for you because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy. And that takes away a big stress from the owner of that car that you're using to practice your driving in. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com because you fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back from many insurers to compare who's cheapest, and you can change your car on that quote as many times as you like without having to do the whole quote again. So it's a quick and easy way to compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.